Delving into the exciting realm of unlocking revenue growth from AI in marketing. I'm Isabel Perry, Global SVP of Emerging Technology at DEPT, and I'm thrilled to be guiding you through this journey. Today's event is packed with valuable insights, discussions, and practical examples. We'll be uncovering how AI is revolutionizing the landscape of marketing and driving revenue growth for businesses worldwide. Before we delve in, let me introduce our guest and my fellow speaker today, Prasenjit Aich, the lead AI evangelist from Google. With 2 decades of experience across mature markets and emerging economies, Pros has built a career in product strategy and revenue growth agendas, having worked with some of the most admired global technology and banking companies globally. He's been with Google for over 5 years, and in his current role, he helps build and evangelize Google's AI solutions for marketing and business transformation. Today, he'll be sharing how AI helps you market at the speed of your customers. So without further ado, we'll kick things off with Pros and unlocking the secrets to revenue growth with AI in marketing.
All right, then. Thank you for having me here. I am super excited. This is my second time with all of you. And I think the first time we got literally the most engaging audience I've had in a really long time. Today, the good news is I'm not going to be able to take as many questions as I did the last time round, given the format we're in. But you know where I am, where we sit. So happy to engage after this call. Quick introductions. I lead the business strategy here at AI for Google, which means I get to talk literally about the most exciting thing which we have seen and heard of in the last couple of years. I mean, it's really changed all of our lives. The other good news is I will liberally use the words AI in the next 20 odd minutes because it also is part of my name. I don't know if you can see my name. It's spelled AICH. So my daughter, 8-year-old. She was the first to say this, that Dad, we are legit the only folks who can keep using AI through everything we do in life. Has there been a more exciting time as a marketer for any of us, right? I mean, it's rhetoric. I've worked for 22 years now across categories, and honestly, it is sometimes so overwhelming. You just sit back and you think that, my God, the kinds of change we are seeing now, how do we deal with this? What do we do with it, right? The category is changing, the environment, is changing, privacy, so many things going on at the same time. But my view on this, on the piece is, 3 things remain absolutely the same, which is, do we as marketers not need to find the right consumer at the right time with the right message? So if those 3 fundamentals remain exactly what they've been for the last 100 or thousands of years of trying to sell our products and pitch our solutions to folks, then at least there is some degree of certainty to what we need to do as marketers, right? And the way I like to think about it is, these technologies, they're just making things a little more possible than what and things, the art of possible, as we say. I think that's what's coming true. So is it complex, hugely complex? So absolutely. But are things becoming faster, quicker, better? Possibly, yes. So honestly, here at Google, we say uncomfortably excited. Couldn't be a better time to talk about that. Where it all starts, and I'm going to be really quick. Normally, these kinds of subjects take anywhere between 4 to 8 hours. I have 86 slides in general to present. Today, I will try and cut this down to something which makes sense to all of us. But we have to spend literally at least the starting of this on why we feel that this change is happening at the pace it's happening, right? And I love the word duality, because to my mind, that's exactly what's playing out. Is the consumer today has such different behaviors to be balanced that makes the work and the talk work, extremely complex. Is which one is it? So, for example, I was at a study recently with Wharton, and they published this data, and they looked at multiple search engines and platforms, and it was not just Google, to say that are we now seeing significantly more complex questions being asked? And it's not queries. Yes, best, near, all of those terms continue and will probably always be in vogue given the way the human nature works. But queries are clearly transitioning to questions. People are asking things and they are talking to the system in a way they've never done before. And hence, the kind of questions which they are asking are aggregated and not just best and near to be on to be is and we're seeing that increase rapidly. But interestingly, the responses are significantly faster, and there's a lot of data around this, which we are happy to share. But what we are seeing is the answers are coming to the customers much faster. I mean, just to give you a perspective, what could earlier take, let's say, 5 steps. To give you an example, if I said, "Hey, plan me a holiday," and then I'd say, "I'm a beach person. Talk to me about beaches. Bring in the month. What's a good continent to go, and so on and so forth." People are writing that upfront into one particular question, and hence the answers which are coming are significantly faster. Here at Google, I think what we're really excited about is the search generative experiment, because we continue to bring outcomes and outputs which are human generated, and that's something we're really proud of. Is that when you're searching for information, you do want it faster, but you want credibility associated with it, right? So complex and faster all happening at the same time. Is it more time or less time? We'll tell you this all the time, is that, and the left data point talks about just online channels, which is 5+ online channels are being reused for purchase. And we've known this. I mean, you've heard things like the messy middle. Well, 5+ is a lot of channels to be for the customer and the consumer to be surfacing. But interestingly, impulse buy has also gone up. I mean, in insurance, for example, we were looking at the data, and they said typically clients would take anywhere between 2 months to finalize an insurance policy. Now, based on certain geographies, it's actually come down to 7 days. So not just impulse buy, but the time being taken to purchase complex products such as insurance has come down. So are they taking more time at the research stage, or are they taking less time to just buy an impulse? This format or that format, it is so interesting. I think we are so excited. I mean, we look at the numbers and say 50 billion daily views on shorts, right? 2 billion users using shorts. And at the same time, when you look at long format, we are saying just alone in the US, you have almost 150 million people on connected TV. There was a stat I was reading which talked about 1 billion hours being consumed on television across the globe, on folks watching YouTube. So short format, absolutely yes, but long format, well, it's certainly not gone away. But all of this comes down to something we've known for a really long time, and we will keep saying again and again and again. As marketeers, we need to remember that all consumers are not equal. Everyone, and I mean, if there is one thing we all agree on across the board, is the ROI focus has literally gone through the roof post COVID. Everybody is saying, make our money work much harder, which means as a unit, we have to find the consumers and we have to spread the net wisely. Hyper personalization or hyper relevancy, you'll hear this all the time, right? For certain industries, like again, auto, finance, which are, let's call them a little more, I mean, finance, for example, is data rich. There you talk about hyper personalization, but auto or CPG, for example, you're saying you want to build relevancy. But ask yourself this question: is it either an or for you, or is it both? I mean, I whenever I talk to most categories, I was talking to a luxury cruise company the other day, and they were saying, well, both are relevant. I need to be more personalized with my customers. There are certain sets of customers where only that particular approach works. And in certain other segments, you have to be extremely relevant and you have to generate your brand awareness. So it's not getting easier for any of us. And the last point in this gloom and doom of presenting challenges is when we look at the kind of data integration and the ability of clients and of categories to be able to look at their own information and then market accordingly, less than 1 in 3 marketers are able to do this extremely effectively. So on the one hand, the consumer's changed and is evolving really fast. On the other hand, we've got everything which is going on in the environment and privacy and cookies going away, which is now real, right? And then you look internally and say, well, we've got our own problems to solve. So you put all of that together, and we've got an opportunity of a lifetime, but it comes with its set of challenges, right? Which is why we're here. I mean, I said AI. Does AI solve everything? No. But hopefully what we're saying, and you'll hear this right through any Google narrative, is we talk about AI amplifying the effort we're putting in as marketers. Now, I get this question all the time. Which one is it? Does AI-led marketing solutions, do they help unlock business growth? Should we think of it from a top-line revenue perspective? Or is it something which brings in efficiency and helps me improve the bottom line? Again, in line with the duality, I said it's both. Don't think of it, and the most important takeaway for all of you is we get asked that what should my AI strategy be? The answer is forget about your AI strategy. Think about what your business strategy is. Always be honest to that, and then ask your partners, ask Google, ask all your partners to say, well, what kind of AI solution or what kind of solution can help enable that particular business strategy. So don't worry about what goes under the hood. That's not the role for marketers. What's really important is we stay true to ROI focus, and we stay true to making sure that we are meeting the marketing and business objective, which we are supposed to do. And then, folks like us, help you say, well, what's the solution which goes under that? In the rest of the time, I'll give you a little bit of a flavor of, the kinds of use cases we are seeing emerging in marketing for AI solutions. There's a lot, as you'd imagine. We've done some studies where you could literally take the 7 on screen and break them into anywhere between 12 to 15 specific use cases. We'd be happy to engage with you and share more of that. But today, I just wanted to, center in probably 2 to 3 of them, just to give you a sense of what these solutions really are and how does it come alive for you. Because the one thing which we keep hearing is that, how do you make this more real to me? At the end of the day, there are just so many things you could do with it. But what do I do in my particular shop, right? So these are the 7 typically which we say that AI can solve for, and we'd be happy to deep dive into any of them at some point in time. But to the point I was making, the use case 7, 12, 15, all of that, what we are definitely seeing, and this is based on certain research we've been conducting with partners, is that 80% of marketing will be AI augmented by 2030. And if you ask us today, we've already done the study on Google's AI solutions, and at least 80% of our clients have already adopted one AI-powered solution already, right? And again, another study we had done recently for cloud customers, we said that on an average, people have almost 7 models built in most Fortune 500 companies, 7 AI-powered models already running across the organization. And when you think of marketing, at least 1 for all of Google solutions for 80% of our clients, right? So staggering stats, all going to say that, yes, you have to adopt. And this slide, sums up my entire message today is that get on the bus earlier. Try, fail, because we could say fail fast, scale fast, because at the end of the day, you're not competing with AI. That's not happening because it's not meant to happen. AI doesn't work that way. We think of it as amplifying, but you are certainly competing with marketers who are using AI. So keeping that as the lens, I'll move ahead. I'll use this term all the time. There are multiple definitions and understandings. I just wanted to level set on how I think and how we think about AI. Is that it's basically something which mimics and is taught to mimic natural intelligence. Both words are very important. Mimic natural, the word mimic, and the word taught. And there are various ways of explaining large language models and neural networks and so on and so forth. But I don't think it's relevant to today's conversation. All you need to do in one line, when your mom or dad says that what is AI, this is the line you should be able to say that, well, it's something which mimics and is taught to mimic natural intelligence. Natural intelligence being, if I were to ask anybody in the room saying, hey, there is a bus standing outside in the campus, it's a green colored bus, find the fifth row and you'll find a packet of chips there. Literally everybody in the room will be able to do it over a certain period of time. That's where the kind of training we've as humans we've learned over the years. We know what a bus is, we know how to make our way, we know what green looks like, and we're able to do it. That's exactly how AI works, wherein we're trying to get it to learn as much as it can from multiple databases and then perform to those kind of instructions, right? I like this very simple analogy because it helps me literally wrap my head around what AI is when we think of the brain, if it's mimicking natural intelligence, you'd imagine that it mimics exactly the way our brain is segmented, which is the left side, as we all know, is the math side of our head, which basically says that, problem solving, data understanding, prediction, all of that, goes into what we call as the analytical AI. The right side is the fun stuff. It's the new kid on the block. I wouldn't say new anymore. I think we've been speaking about this a lot over the last 2 years, but it's clearly the one which is causing all the excitement because it's the first time, it's come front and center. The solution now people can play with it and understand what AI is doing as against being embedded, right? So the right side is for creating new content and having conversations. So if you split it up, the left side helps you synthesize data. It helps you predict. Google Maps is a great example, or what we do with value-based bidding or predictive models. All of that is on the left side. We were again in a recent study done by McKinsey, just to give you perspective on the value of each of these buckets, right? While Gen AI is extremely exciting in what it does, as of now, the value we're seeing by that particular study was 3 times the value gets created on the left side versus what the right time. So yes, please look at what one can do on the right side, but don't forget the here and now, which is what do you do with the solutions which are here? Because the more we do with what's available today, the better place we will be for the future. Gemini, we are obviously supremely excited about what this does. I think this is our most powerful model ever. Multimodal, as it says, which means that it can work across text, image, videos, code, sound, all of that, and it literally powers all our solutions right now. The first two, which from an end consumer perspective, is how is embedded into search and our Performance Max solutions and so forth. So very, very exciting times in terms of what it can do. There are multiple videos, but I think the reality of this tool is when you play with it. So we encourage everybody on the call is take out your phones and figure out how you use Gemini in the real life. That's what I'm going to try and do today in the next 5-7 minutes, just to give you a sense of how this is actually coming alive. At the base of it, all of this is what it's trying to do is it's helping deepen customer connections, which means that how do we uncover new demand which we haven't seen before, and how do we reach out to those consumers, obviously with the right message, and as I said right in the beginning, at the right time, right? So you say right message, right consumer, right time, and you have a great story on your hand, right? This is a colleague of mine. I literally put this together when I was walking into the room, saying that, let me do a live demo. So I took a picture from my phone and I said, I'm going to focus on your shoes. And she gave me permission to use it in this particular session. So I used my Google phone, the Pixel, to say that, hey, let me take a picture of her shoes. It's I didn't recognize it. And I said, well, let's see what it does with it. When you click into the 550, and I've skipped through that, but what you can actually do is use the lens. And I honestly, this is something you should play with. You should do it on your own. See when you click a photo, and I don't know if you all have tried Circle to Search yet. If you have Pixel and Samsung phones, you'll be able to try it. It's amazing because that's the first product, where you don't necessarily need to just use the lens to actually point at a particular object. You can start doing it the way we do things, which is we point at things, we circle it, and you find it. But just to give you an example of how that particular example plays out, when I wrote New Balance shoes for street style in YouTube, I got multiple videos and I said, well, how do I go through all of them if I want to try and capture consumer sentiment? What I picked this particular video saying, well, this looks interesting. Emma Hill is, she's got 81,000 views. I took the YouTube link, I put it in Gemini, and I said, well, summarize this for me in certain bullet points in terms of, what is the video trying to convey to me? Now, play this out in your own setup. Think of it from your client's perspective of all the, and you'd have, in the past, you'd have to literally capture consumer sentiment from multiple tools. Now you can do it on your own. You can literally not, and I mean, there are other applications of it. Think of all the town halls which are extremely boring, and your boss told you to watch it, and you said, yes, sir, I did, or yes, ma'am, I did. And then you didn't. And then, somebody comes back and says, hey, what were they talking about in the town hall? Well, now you have a tool at hand where you can literally put that link in and say, summarize it for me and tell me what. And, you can actually narrow this down to say, and I haven't shown that example here, but in the video, you can look for specific aspects saying, how many times was my brand mentioned? Is there something, I should know which is relevant from a performance acquisition perspective? As you all know, the prompt is super important. How you, and you have to play with it. It's something, you're going to evolve. And that's honestly the quality of prompts. Somebody was saying that the human input continues to be paramount. Is that, are you writing the prompt appropriately? How do you write it will determine how the machine responds and how it summarizes and predicts and synthesizes for you. But as an example of how you can actually look for consumer sentiment and capture it in an aggregated manner. Making this further real for you is, well, we've got the insights. How do I translate that into something, I want to share with someone? Now, I've put this in a marketing brief because, that's the one thing, which I thought was relevant for many of us saying, and please bear in mind, this is not an enterprise grade solution I'm showing you. This is something, which we have for internal use and for the world at large. So it's not a enterprise solution. There are obviously, that's a different platform. The UI is going to be much, much, much better than what I'm showing you. But the idea was to just give you a perspective of what you can do with the technologies. And that's what I wrote. I said, well, can you give me a marketing brief? I think it doesn't show that. But basically, the question I had written was, for those insights which it captured from that particular YouTube video, write me a marketing brief. So this is, showing it from the answer which the tool has thrown out, which says that, well, this is the marketing brief, the campaign objective, what the audience is, the messaging, the channels, and so on and so forth. Remember that this is just the first outcome and output. It allows you to go deep and say, well, you know what? I don't like your TG, or I think this is very vague, or it's not giving me enough detail. That's for you to build, and you can actually tell the tool that, well, this is where I need you to step in. Please deep dive and double click on one of these and, add in your inputs. Amplification. That's exactly what this is doing. It's giving you something to work with. It's amplifying your effort, right? I use this to say, well, I've got the brief. Use the same brief now to give me an ad on for Twitter and X, right? Saying that, and these are just examples I literally did before. So don't get into the weeds of the content. The idea is to directionally show you what you can use this for. So it started right at the top. It captured insights for you. It helped you write a base brief. Now it's actually given you copy, which you can use for various ad creatives, right? And this is at your, all of you can try this, on your own through the Gemini app, right? So this is giving you example. It's giving you templates. It says, well, you should have an image of so and so forth, a copy up of a 550s in the 80s color scheme and so on and so forth to that. Then I use that to say, well, you're asking me to put an image. Can you actually get that image for me? Generate an image for me. And this is an example of how it's actually generated images. This is based on something, our tool called Imagen, wherein the tool has now in the same sequence, it started with insights, built a brief, gave me the copy for a particular social media platform and says, well, you want an image, these are representative images of what you could use. And remember, this is being created on the fly. Think of the possibilities of, could you use any of these? The common question we get is copyright. Of course you could you use it, because in what Google does is indemnify, and honestly now this has become standard industry practices, that it's in you Google indemnifies you as a client and a category to use the images which are generated through the Google Cloud infrastructure, because obviously what I'm showing you is publicly available, but when you get into the cloud engagement, you can use these for all copy. And the idea is not to, would you use this for an external ad? I don't know. But could you use this for an internal presentation? Could you use it to just give someone an idea of what you're thinking? Of course, yes. Right. I've taken further examples of this, all of these images and context, because at the end of the day, a shoe is not just a shoe. It is something which needs to be seen in various contexts. So I wrote this on the fly saying, well, if it's a group of friends, what would that image look like? If it's inside a mannequin store and a mannequin is wearing it, what would that look like? If your mother is, on a Mother's Day, she's opening a present, what would that particularly look like? So as I said, if you see all of these prompts, were written by us, written by me to, say that, give me different kinds of scenarios using the same product in question. Honestly, I was blown by the outcomes in terms of what you could do with it, right? Last few slides, and then I'll pause, this is something known as Music LM. It is a tool which, takes text prompts and converts them into audio tracks, right? So till now, I've shown you what text to text can do, text to image can do. Obviously, there are excellent video solutions. I found this really cool. I said, well, I wanted to do a sneaker commercial, help me with an audio track, right? And we used house music. If you see some of the prompts below, you can make it rock and roll, you can be exciting, you can change the thing. All of that is, and I think you can actually play oh yeah. So you have the track, so it's not just a screen, right? And this is what it comes down to, is anything you imagine, you can create. So as always, humans absolutely center stage. It will come down to what you can do with it, how you think about it, and what you can imagine is what you can create. So that's the most important thing I wanted to leave with you. The roles really widening. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. Everybody in this room is already convinced. You're already adopters of all of the solutions I've spoken of. So we know that, this is something you've already embraced. The idea is, how do you influence change across the organization? I'd love for you to, go outside of your room today and take the conversation forward, saying, how do I make sure that everybody understands where we are, right? Which is why we said CMOs, absolutely, marketing officers for sure, but change management, I think, is going to be absolutely critical, because times are changing as we speak. Remember the joke of the lion, is that when two marketeers were in a room, were in a jungle, one marketeer saw a lion, they started running, looked back and sees that the other person's changing the shoes. And the first one asked the second one saying, hey, do you think you're going to outrun a lion? And the second one says, no, the only thing I need to do is outrun you, right? So back to the point is that change is on us. It's how you're going to deal with it. If it's easy, everyone would do it. We know that. That's why you all are in this room and in the roles you're in, because we believe, and your organizations believe, that this is the right team to be doing it. What's the North Star we should focus on? Always. I've been in financial services for 2 decades. We've always spoken about the importance of money, never more important so than now, is that every dollar needs to work harder. It needs to give back more to the organization. If you go into any conversation with your CEO, with your CFOs, with your marketing heads, anybody, and you're going to be talking about, how it impacts the bottom line, people will listen. I'm representing Google, so I will say yes for sure. Make us work for you, with you. Don't try and figure out. You don't need to work on what the underlying stack is. Work with all of us to see what we could do for you. And my last slide is, remember, it will come down to what you want your business and what for your business, what is relevant to your business right now. If there is one thing that you could point AI at, and it's good to be ruthlessly prioritizing because there are just so many things which one could talk about. But if there's literally one thing you could do, what would that be? With that, I will conclude my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pras. That was really, really interesting. And I'd love to jump in with a few questions. I think the first is to say that you touched on 7 categories that you see being applied in marketing most. They were insights, creative and content, personalization, measurement, user experience, efficiency, and media. And I'd love to know a bit more about the sort of the pace of adoption for those 7. Which one do you think's really, really at the cutting edge, vanguard, early adopters? And which ones do you think are just totally prevalent in the majority of the marketers that you're working with day in, day out?
Thank you, Isabel. I think the one which gets most marketeers excited is creative. I think at the end of the day, we know the difference and the impact good creatives, right creatives can make. And I think, what we really, I can see most people excited about is creative at scale. My own experience right now when I've been seeing folks doing this is everyone seems to be wanting, I mean, for example, Dream Track with in terms of, what it does in YouTube and so on and so forth. I think people are talking to us about how do we build creatives at scale. And how do we use the solutions? That is what most folks want to do, and we're seeing the most interest in. But the one which I think, if I'm being true to ROI focus, I think personalization is getting which means how do you use insights, which is the first one, to make sure that the right message goes out. So it's a little bit of the duality we spoke about. I think one is what people want to use it for, which is creative, but where we're seeing a lot of actual money and effort going on is making sure you're getting insights faster, bigger, because the data problem is the one to solve, specifically in light of the big cookie change, which has already started.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you also touched on the change management officer. It'd be fascinating to know some of the ways in which Google has been, embracing their own change management. If you can share any of that, or sort of pointing AI within their business and seeing really, really transformational effects.
Well, we've been in the news a lot for all the right reasons over the last few days. I think, the one thing is, people have asked us, and I'm going to be absolutely candid here, is we were getting, were we slow to the change, right? And I don't know how many folks know this, that Sundar back in 2017, called us an AI first company, right? So I think one is, what you build into your products, and 2 is how out there you're in the market, right? So we've now got a bunch of product releases which have, I think, the most number of model variants which have happened over the last 2-3 months. So a lot of folks are we too fast in our approach? So clearly we're dealing and grappling with what change is looking for. So it's not easy. But the one thing I think, as well, we've done well as a company is to build great products. So I think, we're continuing to keep that at the center of things, is that we have, certain principles around change and managing change. And the one thing we've always been super proud of is putting things out there, testing them, iterating them. So all of our solutions right now, you'll see, are in experiment mode, because we're saying we want the feedback, not just from the users, but the entire ecosystem at large, because that's what's going to help us make great products. So all of our models are right now getting powered by them. There are various ways in which we're adopting them, but I think it's not easy in terms of the expectations of from Google and from all of us. I think is that we all want it to be the best and the easiest product right there. The only thing working in our favor is, as we have now 8 products which have almost 500 million users. We have 6, I think, which are 2 billion users plus. So data is on our side, that we know how to build great products and manage change. We do see this as, by the way, the third biggest shift after the internet and the mobile. We see AI as literally being a once in a lifetime kind of change. So a lot of things to think through.
Yeah, and you touched on it, but you do need to start getting these products and experiences out to collect data to continue training it, no matter if you're Google or a tiny company, because this is going to be so critical to the way that you're actually building your own products and experiences over the next decade.
Absolutely.
People don't necessarily appreciate quite fast enough.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Praz. That was really, really interesting. And I'd now like to share just some of the examples of how we're taking what you touched on and applying it to our clients' businesses and their challenges. Before I dive in, I'm Isabel Perry. I'm the Global VP of Emerging Technology at DEPT. And I've spent the last 18 months co-leading our AI strategy about how DEPT is transforming itself, but more importantly, how we're able to solve incredibly hard, persistent challenges for our clients with these new technologies. Tiny bit about DEPT. Our mission is to pioneer tech and marketing to help our clients stay ahead, but our vision is to really set new standards for the next era. And there's very few moments, as you alluded to, in our lives where we have the opportunity to really encapsulate what that means. And I think that what's really, there's a real magic happening at the sort of intersection of tech and marketing when you combine the power of data engineering with incredible creative visionaries and unlocking new opportunities for clients. A lot of the work that we do at DEPT across AI comes out of our AI Centre of Excellence, which is called the Greenhouse. And the Greenhouse really started as a small R&D team that looked at generative AI and thought, the opportunity is huge here. And actually, to help businesses understand its impact, we need to be creating the systems that allow us to move very quickly with our clients' proprietary data, with their real data, to say this is what's now possible, rather than focusing on the theory. And so for the last 12 months, we've built out the systems to run the latest and greatest models and focused on our clients' sort of corpus of data. We call them broad language models, and we're using them to power everything across content creation, paid media, experience design, products, applications, services. We're also looking at how it's going to transform business intelligence, making companies actually sort of taking them away from business intelligence to making them intelligent businesses. And of course, huge transformation in the way that we're approaching content creation and content engineering. It's really, really important to establish that that's where a lot of this work's coming out of, because with great opportunity inevitably comes great risk, and everything that we're doing needs to be considered in a secure and stable way. In this space, there's really two fundamental risks that need to be considered. The first is that to build and realize generative AI applications does require a large amount of data, no matter how you want to cut that up. And we've been building sophisticated and highly secure infrastructure for the last 20 years for some of the biggest tech companies in the world. And we're now able to apply that experience into a really, really stable approach to working with data to power these generative AI applications. The second and really interesting, totally novel challenge that has come up with generative AI is that there is a whole host of sort of content generation risks, like jailbreaks or prompt injection attacks, harmful content, harmful code, and manipulation of human-like behavior. The one that most people think about is hallucinations. And again, we've invested heavily in basically building the systems that allow us to counteract some of those totally novel content risks and embedded that into everything that we do in this space. So with that sort of I guess, explanation of how we're approaching this, diving into what that actually means for what we're able to now do for our clients. We build AI products, services, processes with 5 predictions in mind. And the first is that on creative, we're heading into the most productive period in human history. We're already seeing that with some of what Ross showed, and I'll share a few more examples. When it comes to growth marketing, we think AI is going to drive personalization and totally supercharge the role of the marketer, not just the output, but also the effectiveness. Again, going back to Paul's comment, marketing isn't that complicated. It's right person, right time, right message. And AI has really, really leveled up the way we're able to achieve that. On to experience. And I think the key here is that generative AI has created understanding at scale. And so much of the discourse is around, we can make copy, we can write copy, we can generate images, we can generate videos. But actually what we can do is understand anything ever written or communicated or designed and shared online. And the impact that that is about to have on the customer experience is really often overlooked and underexplored. And we think that there's a real opportunity to basically set the, in what mobile did to responsive design, generative AI is going to do to a version of experience design. The fourth area that we look at is automation. And this is really following the belief that working with AI is the new norm. It's again, Pross referred to this, but you are competing with a marketer using AI, but you're also being immensely helped by AI. And we see huge sort of benefits in integrating co-pilots or transforming processes with this. And finally, on strategy and data, the pace at which this technology is evolving is wild. I think it's basically impossible to keep up. I know that's a cliche, but it's true. And as that happens, the technology is going to be commodified. You have access to all of the same insanely powerful tools as your competitor. And the only way that you will be able to differentiate your business is through the right strategy. And it shouldn't be an AI strategy. It needs to be your business strategy. And through really understanding how to bleed the value out of your data to implement that strategy and to gain the most impact from applying AI to it. So let me share a few examples of how this actually plays out in the real world. On creative, AI has transformed the full end-to-end marketing process. Again, Pross referred to some of this in the brief and concepting stage. We're seeing it play out across content creation, CRM, content quality assurance, media insights, and experience. Just a couple of examples. So within the world of briefing, we work with a lot of the largest brands in the world. We work with teams that might have 300 people creating content for CRM programs. We might work with global brands that have that were running their lifecycle marketing in 20 markets. And so often the challenge that our clients have is we spend so much time researching what's going to be relevant in many, many different markets 2 weeks ahead, because we have to write all of that content and then we have to get all of the approvals before we push it out. That applies to organic social as much as it does to CRM or paid social, or even in product marketing. And what we're beginning to do is transform the way that we're using large language models to create trends reports. And we can basically scrape a lot of trend spotting, so Spotify APIs, YouTube APIs. We can program automatic buzz retrievals to say, this is an interesting trend. What are people saying about it on Twitter? What are people saying about it on Reddit? And then use large language models to basically summarize really interesting areas that could become something that our clients want to speak about and generate cultural moment trend reports and or briefs. On a much more specific area, we do a lot of influencer and creator marketing. And in that space, a lot of the time you need to outreach to 300 creators to say, are you interested in working with this brand on this brief? And we're one of Airtable's early generative AI partners, where what we've actually managed to do is basically set up a table and we say, this is the creator, this is the brand, this is the placement, this is what we're trying to achieve, this is the type of content we want to create. And we're now using generative AI to basically automatically write 300 email outreaches in about an hour instead of taking, 20 minutes per email, because you have to do all of the research, look at the different profiles to pull that together. So it's hyper targeted, but it's very, very impactful. On text generation, we've been integrating large language models into our text generation for over 3 or 4 years now, but there have been a significant pace uplift in the last year or so. We've developed our proprietary tech here called Content GPT. It's basically the ability to train a model on a brand's tone of voice, necessary sort of specific product descriptions, words that would never be said, specific legal guidelines, and then generate text in any, ad copy, SEO content, product descriptions, retail media ad formats, and generate that at scale. On average, we estimate that we reduce the content creation time by about 80%. And that actually is plays out really, really substantially, sometimes taking it from months to a matter of weeks or days, because we're able to sort of shortcut part of the legal process, for example. That is being applied to trending topics, written briefs, copy at scale, transcreation, translation, and quality control on content-based and content for SEO. So it's had a dramatic impact on many of our clients. But on the more visual side, we're finding, as many people are, that what we can now do with AI-generated image production is incredibly enabling. At the pitch process, for example, we're able to show how we could create campaigns with no shoot, no real car, just downloading 3D models, and say these are 3 different creative routes that we could bring to life this this car. Or for example, for Smart in the top there, we've done a lot of creative work for them where we take different real shoots, but then basically build out more of a narrative around where those products were actually situated. And it gets more extreme when you start combining that with sort of actual traditional production methods. So for one brand, we're looking at how we can combine live action real humans with green screens or virtual sort of 3D backgrounds with fully AI generated visualizations to basically enable much more ambitious creative concepts, but cost effectively and within tight budgets, which is the typical triangle that you see with AI, which is sort of better content, faster and cheaper. And it's so true, and it's playing out in every sort of every way that you can look at across the content production spectrum. Going sort of even deeper or even more complex, what we have also been doing is exploring how we can take 2D images and use that to generate 3D models. And we're actually building a 3D, well, we're building a game in-house where we've basically said, could we build a fully fledged game where every single part of it is AI generated? So the game mechanics, the concepts, the characters, the settings, the backgrounds, the story arc. And we haven't published it yet, but it's been a really, really fascinating process of testing how far you really can start from just, an idea, and then combining with so much of this, it's about knowing which of the, hundreds and hundreds of tools you want to combine to get to somewhere really interesting. And again, on 3D modeling, what we've seen is we're basically able to deliver much more complex and engaging AR lenses, which we build a lot of, because we're able to generate 3D models in 5 minutes instead of what might have historically taken 3 days for some of our best 3D designers, just because it has historically been a really, really complex process to generate these models. So and then on the more sort of I guess at the intersection of sort of technical targeting and CRM, we are seeing so much opportunity and as Pros referred to, sort of ROI on beginning to introduce more hyper-personalization around our content. So for Audley, that is a luxury travel company, we have been working on a Salesforce integration where we're experimenting with hyper-personalized emails that speak to what we know about our customers' specific travel requirements. So, for example, on the one hand, you might have they're looking for luxury lakes and mountains. On the other hand, you might have someone that just wants to go to Canada, United States, or Australia. And we're able to generate those fully personalized one-to-one emails for these customers. Finally, in the world of content creation, and this isn't that sexy, but it is so impactful, which is that we're seeing when AI is applied to the zero value add parts of the process, which still are fundamental to the overall delivery of high quality work, you can see some of the most interesting results. So we now use AI to deliver a lot of our quality control for clients, and that is checking, have we hit all the brand messages? Have we used any words we shouldn't? Have we hit all of the legal requirements? And again, it's able to just dramatically improve the overall quality of the work and also automate that step of the process, which was essential but not additive in the value of the overall content. Within the world of growth marketing, so much of the work that we're doing here that is really unlocking a lot of the value is around building propensity models to predict outcomes. So that might be a model of what's the likelihood of a person doing this or a product playing out like this, and then using that to influence where and how we are bidding. So one example of this is our work with Foot Locker. We're using AI-powered product scoring to basically optimize how we're distributing, budgeting, and targeting. What that actually means is if they have, say, 5 different shoes or different sneakers, one of those sneakers might sell 10 times better than the other 4, but might also be returned 100% of the time. And so by building a model to predict the return rate of a specific sneaker, we can be much smarter about how and where we're allocating media spend. And overall for Foot Locker, we've managed to increase their gross margin uplift by 9% and reduce their orders that are returned by 2% by implementing this. It's also really interesting thinking about how the cookieless world is going to impact growth marketing and how AI is already making a massive impact on brands responding to that. I think a key part here is just really emphasizing how important it is to be collecting your first-party data in a secure and reliable way, and that is going to benefit not just your paid media activations, but also what you're able to do with training large language models on your own data. So for example, for Gusto, we recently used their first-party data to optimize the value-based bidding algorithms, and we were able to increase the lifetime value by 24% year on year. What's actually happening here is we're heavily reliant on companies like Google to use their AI to allocate that spend really intelligently, but it requires that sort of dual partnership of Gusto arriving with really strong first-party data and Google having incredibly powerful AI targeting in place. What's also really interesting as we head into a cookieless world is that what we're seeing is that media campaigns are going to be optimizing delivery via AI and automation. And actually, what we're seeing is that websites that perform well are going to be significantly prioritized in those search results. So the more that you can be putting energy into enhancing your user experience and conversion rates, the better that will actually impact your overall media performance. And again, that is because of the way that Google and other companies are constructing their AI targeting algorithms. Finally, and again, Por's touched on this, but there's so much opportunity on the insights piece. And I think that we don't see nearly enough of this in the news and in the coverage of this. A really low-hanging fruit, for example, some of the work from Just Eat, and this is not an accurate click-through rate because I don't want to share their proprietary click-through rates, but basically looking at comparing one cuisine to another cuisine to work out if Just Eat shows burgers or ramen, which cuisine will have an overall impact, like the most significant impact on driving an uplift in click-through rate. And again, that's using sort of the analytical AI rather than the generative AI. But if you then layer on the multimodal ability to process images, you've actually unlocked like the next level of data-driven insights to understand how your imagery is impacting the overall performance of your ads. Moving on to experience, and this is really where I think a lot of the industry has a blind spot. We've been working with Burrow, which is a US furniture retailer, to explore how generative AI will impact the customer experience. And we asked ourselves, what is the future of commerce with generative AI changing the way that we can design front-end experiences? The way that we've approached this is training a brand language model on Burrow's information. So what that actually means is, here is all of the Burrow product category, the product catalog. Here are the titles, the product benefits, the specific materials, the dimensions, and that is one part. And then we have been exploring how can we build an experience where people are familiar with it. So we're relying on UX elements that people are comfortable with, but nudging people to start sharing their requirements in a way which is a bit like prompting a brand language model. And then what we're able to do is take that customer intent and match it with the product catalog and come up with ways that we can really help customers understand why a product might be relevant for them or how it could fit into their home. And I'd like to share some examples of where that thought exercise has come, which we're now building. So how might generative AI revolutionize e-commerce? For example, what if you could ask questions about anything across the website? Here, we're using multimodal AI to basically click on an image and say, can I see other furniture in this wood? Here, we're inviting people to basically prompt the website and say, I'm looking for furniture for my college dorm. And what we're then showing, if I just go back, is that we are able to dynamically update the introduction to this page, but also call out, okay, well, these are sleepover sofas, and we're going to maximize space and add flexibility to your dorm room. Or these are wall shelves, and it frees up your floor space because we can make the assumption that a dorm room might not be very large. Or what if the AI assistant integrates into the current UI? So here again, what we're trying to do is build out UI which people are familiar with. And so it's not like some like alien chat interface, which might feel quite unintegrated into the overall experience of the website. So we have a shop assistant, we have a prompt interface where someone can write anything that their requirements are. And then we also have more familiar sorting and filtering, like, okay, this is for 4 people, or what's your budget? So what if the site can visualize products based on your preferences? And here, what we're showing is that one product can be rendered against many different backgrounds. So this is an open plan office, this is a farmhouse. And again, we're looking at this for a number of clients of sort of using photogrammetry to do 3D, essentially models of a given product, and then generate different backgrounds so that we can target that overall content with a sort of 3D model against different backgrounds to be hyper relevant for different customer cohorts. Then, of course, what if you could talk to an AI avatar shopping assistant? And this is now all becoming possible in a way that is extraordinarily fast. And there are now a few really good SaaS providers offering those avatars to act almost like a live shopping stream, but directly speaking to you. Or what if you could browse furniture from the context of your home? And again, this is just looking at integrating AR so that you could say, okay, well, this is your home. Actually, we can start sort of overlaying our products into your home, but also exploring, could we start doing dynamic floor plans, for example, because we can understand space, like spatial awareness from these large language models. And of course, integrating things like multimodal speak to the website so that you can start saying what your specific needs are, which is another area which is absolutely fascinating to consider around how this is going to transform accessibility. So hopefully that's a glimmer of some of the things which are being unlocked in the world of experience. Moving into automation, and this is this idea that working with AI is the new norm. I'd just like to share one example of how we are really transforming entire teams within really large organizations here. For one global tech company, we worked with their comms team to build an AI press engagement tool. So this comms team had around 600 people that, prior to working with us, had 300 spreadsheets that was tracking all mentions of them in the news. And we developed two tools. One was the press tracker, which scraped mentions to summarize stories that were interesting and called out the company. And Comstar, which basically helped them write generative AI press releases or the first draft to respond to some of those stories. And so far, we've replaced those 300 spreadsheets and we've run over 7,000 campaigns from this tool. Again, an example of where by integrating AI into the processes, we're able to respond much faster to stories. And we're also able to really enable that team by leaning on things like transcreation and translation, because we can understand stories in any single language. So there's like many angles to how this has massively empowered that team beyond just synthesizing stories around what is happening in the press. And finally, on strategy and data, I think what's really interesting here is it is really hard to navigate this landscape and to know how to mitigate risks. And I think that what's really important is to focus on, and as Pros said, what is your overall strategy and how can AI enable that? And then set out the right optimal path to achieving that. And fundamental to that is choosing the right data kit for you. And that means, how is it being hosted? What is the model choice? How are you comparing models? How are you keeping the costs under control? How are you capturing data now? Because the cost of data to train your models is not going down because there's a finite limit on the time it takes to generate data. What is the right infrastructure in place? Do you have the right guardrails in place? All of these are the really meaty questions that you need to be asking now if you aren't already. And then also just creating your fundamental and support systems. And in a way, what I mean by that is what we have come to think about a lot is actually when you're building to realize some of these opportunities, you need to be building for stability and growth. And what I mean by that is with a really stable shell, which is the backbone of how the system will work. And that is basically a sort of trustworthy foundation. But then it needs to be conceived in such a way that you have a growth core, because the technology is changing so quickly that you need to be able to do, for example, swap one model out for another within 5 minutes, because that will enable you to have the bleeding edge incorporated into what you are trying to achieve. And so that's our approach to building the infrastructure for this and the systems to actually realize some of these opportunities. So thank you very much. I hope that this was useful in sort of diving into some of the real world and real applications that we're seeing transform the way that marketers are able to use AI to solve many challenges today.
That was exhaustive, Isabel. Thank you so much for making this come alive in things one can use for. I mean, one of the questions which I always feel after these sessions is, and I'd love to hear your point of view, is what level of upskilling do clients now need to do at their own shop? I mean, because these are technologies, and we think of ourselves as marketeers first, and not necessarily the most upskilled on the technology behind it. But it just seems like there is a basic level one should be aware of. So how do you think of, as a CMO or as a marketing head or a marketing lead, how should I think about upskilling my shop?
I think it's a really important question, because what you allude to with that is actually changing the culture for AI to be everyone's responsibility. And it's not an AI team's responsibility, it's every individual needs to have a mindset of how can I change my day-to-day, rather than looking to solutions from a product team to assess the process and build new tools. And so I think that it's the most important thing is that mindset. Like, rather than, you could come up with 101 training programs and it's really important you do, but actually the question I think for leaders today is, how do I change the perspective on this, that it's everyone's responsibility to embrace it and make sure that they have access to the right education and tools to then act on that. And I think that we're working with some really amazing brands that are inviting us in to do sort of 2-day workshops with all of their UX designers, for example, to say this is how it's going to transform. We have weekly masterclasses at DEPT run by DEPT employees as well as external partners that come in and give a masterclass on a specific craft. I think there's so many different ways that you can cut it up, but ultimately it comes down to, how do you make it everyone's responsibility? And that is a hard thing to crack, and I think it has to come from the very, very top.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And the second and my last question is your last slide, build for stability. I mean, I think super important. We keep talking about, we use the word durable a lot because everything is around durable measurement and durable solutions. But I'm also, intrigued by, a professor's, he called this out recently. He said the weight challenge. I don't know if you read that, wherein the dilemma in front of many folks is how long to wait, given the fast nature of change, right? Things are changing so fast. Is there merit in waiting one more day and seeing a solution which could possibly cut down time by half? So how do the leads think about waiting or jumping straight in?
Yeah, and we have that dilemma at DEPT as well, right? Build, buy, wait. And I mean, we have also run into challenges arising from that. So I think it's the right question to be asking. I think that what the stable shell alluded to was the systems that will always be relevant, whether or not the latest, product is released, because it's the infrastructure. So it's data storage, compute, networking, or the right monitoring and control. So is the system healthy? Are we monitoring the performance properly? Do we have the right security in place? And also resource optimization. So are we approaching auto scaling correctly? Are we resource allocating correctly? Are we managing the costs correctly? Whereas everything that comes in the sort of the growth core is what might be replaced tomorrow by a new API from Google. And so that's much more around the models or the actual tasks or use cases. But that's why you really need to be building the system rather than the proof of concept, in a way. Like, proof of concepts are really valuable, but the system to run them at scale is what's going to actually progress you for the next decade.
Thank you. That makes sense. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope you found these discussions into marketing strategies valuable. Key takeaways to remember: AI is not a replacement for human creativity, but a powerful tool to augment your marketing efforts. By leveraging AI, you can gain deeper customer understanding, personalized experiences at scale, and optimize campaigns for maximum return on investment. Remember, successful AI implementation requires a data-driven approach and a really clear understanding of the marketing goals. We've shared a handful of resources with this event invite that explore how you can integrate AI into your own marketing strategies. And of course, DEPT and Google are here to support you on this exciting journey. We hope you enjoyed the session and thank you so much for attending.